Welcome to episode 79 of the Twig Snapper Podcast. I'm glad to have Ian White, big time former NHLer, played 525 NHL games, 189 points as a defenseman. Thanks for joining me. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Yeah. So we're gonna focus mostly on your pro career, but there's one thing I kind of wanted to have you touch on before, and you played in the 2003 World Juniors with Canada. You guys got second place to Russia. So I wonder if you could just kind of start by talking about that world tournament a little bit.
Yeah, well, I was fortunate enough to play in the World Juniors. I mean, growing up, at least in Canada, that's pretty much every young hockey player's dream. And I was lucky enough to play as an 18-year-old. There was only three of us 18-year-olds on that team. Tournament was in Canada. It was in Halifax, and that was another bonus. In those years, I think every 4 years it was in Canada. So getting a chance to play in front of your home country, it was awesome. So we had in the middle of summer, they took a bunch of us players to Halifax for a month to have a training camp, like a pre-World Junior training camp. So we got to check Halifax out and stay there for the month in summer. And then I think it's probably December 10th or so, they bring the team to Halifax to make the team. I think there was probably five or six cuts. So they bring maybe, 28, maybe 30 guys. And so I made the team as an underage guy and you get to play in Halifax. I think the rink seated probably 10,000 people, but it was absolutely bananas, the the energy in there. I know to this day the TSN guys, the TV guys who were covering it in Canada, they say it was the loudest, most energy they've experienced at any single tournament. Like you could feel it shake. The building was shaking. It was awesome. So the tournament, we got off to a really good start. I don't think we won every game. We blew a couple out, and the semis we had uh, Team USA. That's always the big matchup in the World Juniors, and we snuck by them by a goal. It might have even been overtime. I think it was overtime actually. So we snuck by them and got to face Russia in the finals, and we had the lead. I think it was 2-1, either after two. I think it might have been after two periods, or at least after one, anyways. So we had a D-man coughed it up, gave him a free goal. They tied it up 2-2, and they ended up pulling it out. So we lost, which was very unfortunate. But it was still one of the best experiences of my life for sure.
Right. I mean, it's kind of a heartbreaker in a sense, but like you said, just the kind of the energy and what those TSN guys said about how crazy it was, all that had to make the experience great. And getting a silver medal is still obviously a great accomplishment. It just kind of sucks when you know how close you were to getting that gold.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think in those years or when you're at that age, at least in hockey, you you don't even really know what you're doing, or you don't really appreciate, I guess, like the magnitude of what it is. You're just kind of going and playing and showing
Yeah.
up where you're told, and it's obviously a big deal. But and in the moment, you're just playing hockey, right? You're playing hockey in front of a great crowd, and you're playing for your country. And when it's all said and done, then you look back on it, and it's quite a special event to be a part of for sure.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of kids obviously who dream about playing for their nation who never get the chance. So the few that do, it's an extreme honor to be able to do that. So we'll kind of transition here into your pro career. You spent the first couple of years playing in the A. You know, talk about that kind of like just getting your feet wet into pro hockey before you hit the NHL.
Yeah, my first year pro was the lockout year where there was no NHL, 2003, 2004, maybe it's 2004, 2005. So my first year pro, the Leafs weren't going. I was drafted to Toronto. The Leafs weren't going, so I ended up playing in St. John's in the AHL. Uh, I had played, I think, 8 games for them at the end of the season, the previous season after junior. I got called up, so I had a little taste of what AHL hockey was. Um, and then playing a first full year, it's quite an adjustment. It's the first time you're really moving out on your own. In junior, you lived with billets, so now we moved out. Me and a friend of mine from junior lived together, and St. John's, Newfoundland is very remote, super far away. It really actually doesn't even feel like you're in Canada. It's kind of like a mix between Canada and Europe. Uh, but the people are super friendly. It's a super, super interesting experience to live there. Have great memories. So played that year. Had a good year. That was the last year that team was going to be there. Toronto was moving the farm team to Toronto the next year. So the next season, the NHL was back on, and I had hoped to get a chance to play NHL like right out of the gate that year, but Pat Quinn and the staff there, they were like, the league was so much older in those days too. Like most of the guys, I think, were probably 30, 35 even years old. Like we had like some really older legendary hockey players, so they didn't really take many young guys. So I didn't get a chance out of camp. Played the season in the minors. I figured I'd be one of the first call up guys too, because I was having a good season and I felt pretty good. And every single other D man got called up before me because they had tons of injuries throughout the season, and it was towards the end of the year, maybe a month left in the season, and I was watching the Leafs play, and they were in Montreal, and one of the D men got hurt, and I was like there was literally no one else, no other D men to call up. So I'm like, man, I'm for sure gonna get called up. So sure enough, I got called up. The team was playing in Jersey the next day, so I'll jump on a plane, fly to Newark, and play my first game. Got out there one of the first shifts. I ended up taking the puck down the wing. I dropped it to Matt Sundin, and he put it in. And I was like, man, this is amazing. And so there's 12 games left in that season. Played the rest of the season there, and the season after, I started the year in the show, and I was there for the rest of my career.
Do you think that that time in the AHL prepared you better? Like once you got to the NHL, do you think it helped?
Oh, for sure. I mean, wherever you're playing, you should be learning and progressing, right? Whatever level it is, there's always stuff you can learn. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter if you play 1 year in the minors, 2 years, 3 years. You should be improving. But yeah, it was definitely, that the first year in St. John's, we actually had, well, the AHL was stacked with NHL guys because there was no NHL. So that was probably the best year that quality wise that the AHL has ever had, because every team had probably five or more like bona fide NHL guys playing. So it was kind of like a mixture of like a hybrid almost. But yeah, definitely. So I played that full year and then almost an entire full year to get my feet wet with pro hockey. Yeah, it definitely helped.
And then when you get there, your first point is an exciting one. I mean, a legendary player in Matt Sundin that you get the assist and he gets the goal. That had to have been pretty exciting. One of your first kind of big moments in the NHL.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was amazing. And I mean it all happens so fast, right? Because one day you're sitting at home watching TV, and then the next morning you're on a plane, got to get ready for your first NHL game. You don't really have time to take it all in. But it panned out well. I think it was the next game I scored. It was either the next game or the third game I scored, but I ended up starting out like a point a game guy for the first 6 games. So it was quite thrilling.
Yeah. What do you think your hardest adjustment was in the NHL? Or was there something that you thought was kind of hard to adjust to?
Mm, it's a good question. Um, in those years, the NHL was quite a bit different than it is now. it was way bigger, probably slower too, but the guys were bigger. It was definitely more physical. There was more clutching and grabbing and that type of stuff. Like my D partner was Hal Gill. He was I don't know, probably 6'6", 6'5" for sure. And you had so many guys who were like, I'm 5'9", and most of the guys were like 6'2" or bigger, right? So you're playing against like not just grown men, but like really big grown men. So as a small guy, especially a small D man, you got to find ways to work and to use your abilities and use whatever ability you have that you can take an advantage on. The big guy, you got to use it, right? Because you're not going to outmuscle him. You're not going to have the reach and the range. So you got to find ways to get the job done and whatever that entails.
Going off what you said about the league being different, as a guy who played when the league was different, it was a little more physical, like you said, bigger, slower game. Now it's less fighting, fast paced, skill, fancy stuff. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's good for the league? Do you like the way it's going? Do you miss old parts of it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit torn. I do prefer, I'm an old school kind of guy. I love, not that I fought much, but I think fighting needs to be in the game. It eliminates a lot of the chippiness, and usually every team has one or two guys that runs around and takes cheap shots and stuff. And uh, I don't know if you saw the other day in the World Championship that the Canadian player like took his skate, like tried to he stomped on the other guy's ankle with his skate.
No, I didn't see that.
No, it was pretty nasty. But that stuff really doesn't happen because the guy knows he's gonna get in a fight. And so it eliminates a lot of that stuff. This year, so I've been away from the game for a while, and I actually since 2013, I hadn't really been watching for about 5 years. I was pretty bitter, just the way things ended. So I couldn't even watch hockey because I figured I should have still been out there. And then in the last few years, I started watching again, and this year started playing in the coast. And it's a pretty fast. Even the coast is pretty fast, but it was interesting to see the adjustment from when I played and how like the physicality. It was very soft. There was hardly any guys finishing their checks, and there was next to no fighting. And so you have it's different. The speed, I love it. Whatever you can do, the clutching and grabbing, that doesn't need to happen, right? So whatever you can do rules wise to get the fastest pace is good. Obviously, any talent, let the guys use their talent. If guys can stick handle or make moves, that's great. Um, but even watching this year's playoffs, you see a lot of calls for just like, hard, what I think is just hard hockey. Especially in playoffs. I think you got to let these guys play, put the whistles away, unless there's something blatant. You don't need to be calling everything. It just kills the flow.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who have had complaints about that through the end of the season into the playoffs. You're listening to Chicklets or different podcasts, talking about the refs and kind of how the game has gotten a little bit softer in a sense. But there's a lot of fans who feel the same way as a lot of the old time hockey guys who they love that. I mean, when there's a fight, the stands go crazy. I mean, it erupts. People love that kind of hard hockey. So I don't know why the league wants to kind of try to do away with it. I don't
Well,
think it's smart. I mean, I think there needs to be that skill. People love that, the fancy stuff, but there also needs to be a balance, I think, between both of it.
and at the end of the day, we are essentially entertainers, right? People come to pay to be entertained, and most people like to watch fighting. Especially when you get into the States, well, Canada too, but playing in the Federal League last year and part of it this year, we would get 6,000 fans show up like in cities in the far south, and most of them like they don't know anything about the game. They don't even know the rules and stuff, but they want to see fights. So people pay good money just to see the fighting. So if you're running a business, you want people to come through the gates, you want people excited. And when half of your customers want to see a certain type of game, you have to supply that. But you know, and the other thing is I've been good friends with uh, a bunch of fighters over the years, and they're willing to do it. Nobody's forcing them to do it. You know, it's even like you look at UFC guys, right? They love to do what they do. They love to fight. There's a risk of getting hurt. They probably will get hurt at some point, but who are we to tell them you can't do that? Especially if you're
Right.
gonna. I know there's lots of talk in different leagues about taking fighting right out of the game. Period. I think that would be a bad decision for a bunch of reasons we're talking about.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's gonna whatever leagues try to do that, they're gonna lose fans, and people are gonna migrate to leagues like the Fed where fighting is still prevalent. It needs to be in the game. I mean, it doesn't have to be at the same level it's always been, but it's got to be there in some capacity. It can't go away completely.
Like I can see to some degree. I mean, I still like the olden days where you had two just heavyweights who would fight each other just basically for show. I can see how the league would want to get rid of that
Yeah,
aspect, but the
yeah.
hard hockey, like the retribution for a dirty play or something like that, or to get spark your team, that part of it can't ever be taken away.
Right. Yeah. Somebody, you got to be able to stick up for your teammates. One, so that guy doesn't do it again, and two, so other people don't, be hitting nasty hits and things like you said in that Canadian player did. I mean, that stuff isn't needed in the game. That nasty stuff, nobody wants that. But the fighting, like you said, helps keep some of that stuff at bay because guys, they don't want to fight. They don't want to get their head pounded in, so they're not going to do stupid stuff.
Yeah, it does keep it honest.
Yeah. So, kind of switching gears here back to your career, you were bouncing around quite a bit in 2010-11. You went from Calgary to Carolina to San Jose, kind of trade. What was that like for you, not really having a place to call home that year?
Yeah, well, it even started obviously like at the end of the season before when I went from Toronto to Calgary. Um, it was probably 2 weeks before the deadline and I think it was a Friday, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been a Sunday actually, because I was sitting at home and I was watching TV. I was eating cereal with my son on my lap, and the phone rings and it says Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. And I was like, man, I'm not answering this. It's my day off. And so called back. I pick it up and it was Brian Burke. And he said, hey, just I'm letting you know you got traded to Calgary. And he said, he made some comment, something like, but don't worry, you're not going by yourself. And so I had a sneaking suspicion that my best friend on the team was probably coming with me, Matt Stajan. So I called Stajan right away. I said, hey, did you get traded? He's like, no. And while I was on the phone with him, he got the call from Burke. So I was like, all right, at least, my buddy's coming with me. Turns out that four of us, so Nicholas Hagman, Jamal Mayers got traded, all four of us together to Calgary, and we were all pretty good buddies. And we're like, okay, whatever, this will be all right. I mean, even though it sucks getting traded, but um, so I figured, all right, we'll probably have a couple days like pack up and go do a round, say goodbye to people. And Daryl Sutter calls me, within like 20 minutes, and he says, "Hey," so it was 11 in the morning when I got the call from Burke, and 20 minutes later, Daryl Sutter calls me. He says, "We'll have a plane on the tarmac at 5 o'clock." So I was like, "Oh man!" So I had to go race downtown, grab my gear, pack up, my clothes or whatever I could, basically, because you're leaving, and it's likely that you'll never be back, right? So packed up, got on the plane, and flew to Calgary. Finished the year there. That was the end of my contract, and I had arbitration rights. So I went to arbitration and was awarded a 1 year deal. So I started the next season there in Calgary and played the first month, played October. We didn't get off to a very good start, so ended up getting traded to. I was the only D man without a no trade clause, so I ended up getting traded to Carolina by myself. So I just had moved. So at the end of last season, moved all the way from Toronto to Calgary for like 2 months. Then I go home to Manitoba for summer. September, I moved to Calgary. So got a house, moved all my stuff there, got all set up, and was there for a month, and then got traded to North Carolina. So move all the way across the country again. So the same deal. I leave right away, and then the family figures out, getting down there. So my family came down about a month later, and was there for 3 months. And I don't know what it was, but I didn't really fit in. I don't know if it was the system or my mindset, but I just wasn't playing my best, and I wasn't making anything happen. I was probably a little depressed too at the time, and I was there for 3 months. And fortunately, I got traded to San Jose. They were getting kind of stocking up for their cup run. They had a really good team that year, so I got traded there a week or two before the deadline. So now just got settled in a new house. So when my family came down to Carolina, I was trying to make the decision, like, do I move all my stuff down here? Do I get a house? You know, and so what my mindset was, well, nobody gets traded twice in a year, so I may as well get set up down here. So moved all my stuff down there, got a nice house and got everything set up and was there for, like I said, a couple months, and now all the way across the country again. This time left my stuff, just rented a place. I had furniture and all that. We finished the season there. The team was phenomenal. I'm pretty sure I played maybe 28 games or so at the end of the year. And the team was on such a tear. We won almost every one of those games. I think we lost 2 games, like outright, and maybe 3 in overtime, something like that. But like a crazy tear going into the postseason. Finished second in the conference behind Vancouver, and ended up going to the conference finals against Vancouver. But it was the furthest I've been in playoffs, and it was the most exciting for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned how good that team was, and there were a lot of big names on that team: Jumbo and Joe Pavelski and Patrick Marleau, and just different guys. Do you think, kind of, you said you were in a little bit of a rut in Carolina? Things weren't just you just weren't playing your best. You were a little depressed. Once you got to San Jose, they were having success. Things were rolling along. Did that kind of perk up your mood and like change your, game, and like you kind of got back in the groove and started having fun again?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was. I mean, it's amazing what winning does for you. It doesn't matter. Well, so people always ask, what's your favorite place? Where your favorite spot was over the years, and the way I see it too is you can be in the best city in North America or in the NHL, but if you're not winning games, you're not going to really enjoy yourself. And the vice versa is true. You could be on the best team in the league, and if you're in like a terrible city, it's not going to be as fun, right? So there's a mixture. But San Jose, the location, the team was up. We were winning, like we literally were winning basically every single game. And the weather, the city's amazing. The weather's amazing. It's such a cool spot to play. The fans are awesome. It gave me a new spark.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like you said, I mean, it's crazy how just a little different adjustment can just give you that spark that you need to kind of kick it into gear. After San Jose, you went to the Red Wings, and looking at that roster, I mean, there were a whole heck of a lot of big name guys: Zetterberg, Lidstrom, Abelkader, Datsuk, Cronwall, Filppula. I mean, just endless just phenomenal hockey players. Um, and as a fan, I look at that and you're just kind of like, wow, these are great names. As a guy who had been around the league for a while, do you get any of that? I don't know if I want to use the word starstruck, but when you show up there and you see some of those guys, do you get sort of starstruck, or is it less impressive because you're all great hockey players, you're all at a high level, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, personally, I don't get starstruck, but I get excited. So the first, as soon as I signed there and I realized who I was going to be playing with, it was super exciting. And then the first day I got to camp, I got paired up with Nick Lidstrom, and it's like it seems really surreal because here's arguably the best defenseman to ever play, and now this is my partner. And playing to me, Pavel Datsyuk is the most purely gifted player, and playing against him for 6 years before playing with him, I was always amazed at how good he was. And then when you're on the same team and you practice with him every day and play with him, it was just mind-boggling to see how good he was. And then obviously, like you mentioned, there's Zetterberg, so many guys, Franz, and even I mean Holmstrom. There was a number of guys at 4 Stanley Cups. It was just a great organization, and I was so fortunate to be a part of it.
Would you say you enjoyed your time with the Red Wings and playing with all those guys?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, it was awesome.
Was that one of your favorite stops along the way? If you had to pick one of them,
Yeah,
when
for
people
sure.
ask.
But like I said, I really enjoyed them all. Even though Carolina, we weren't doing that well as a team, and I wasn't having much personal success. The city, the state, the weather there, it was so nice. Some of the friendliest people, like your neighbors and just the people in that area were so nice, so friendly. So all the spots, they all happen at different parts of my life, but I really enjoy every single city I played, every team I played for. They were all great.
Yeah, it's hard to narrow it down when you've played in a lot of great places. You've played with a lot of great people. People ask the question, "Who was the greatest person you played with?" And obviously, that's a hard question to answer when you played in the NHL with some of these guys. I mean, maybe you'd say Nick Lidstrom just because he's
Yeah,
arguably the
well,
best
I'd
defenseman.
say for sure, Nick Lidstrom was the best D man I ever played with, and then Pavel Datsyuk was for sure the best forward I played with.
Yeah, but you obviously played with a lot of other phenomenal guys in Toronto and San Jose, just all around. You look at some of the names you played with, and they're guys that are in the history books as the greatest to ever do it. Um, you had, obviously some different legal issues and struggles and stuff. And I was watching your podcast that you did with, I think it's, what does he call it? Slinging the Biscuit. Um,
Okay, yeah.
and at the end, or when you were talking about all that, you mentioned that a lot of those things kind of changed your outlook on life and the way you kind of approach things. So I was kind of just wondering what you meant by your outlook and how it's changed through some of the different struggles that you've had to overcome.
Yeah, I guess it changed my priorities for sure. I definitely slowed down. I used to be very spontaneous and instinctive and sort of compulsive. So what I do kind of whatever I want, whenever I wanted to do it, like the first thought that popped into my head, uh, I would just go with it. I wouldn't pause and think about the decisions that I was making. And a lot of those decisions were the wrong ones versus now, since that's happened to me, usually, well, every time now, I pause and think on, I do a lot of thinking, but I pause and think about what the right answer should be or what decision I'm going to make. And usually when I when I do that, I make better choices. Life's all about choices, and it's important to make the right ones.
Right. And obviously, struggles, a lot of guys had various struggles, but and you'd want to go back and maybe change them. But then again, everything that happens to you in your life and anyone in their life builds them to the person that they are now. You learn from mistakes and you grow up and you mature and like you said, you think now and you've got a different outlook on life. So maybe they weren't the greatest things that happened to you in your life, but they have molded you and they're part of kind of what you've grown into today, which is, and then that's true with anyone, I think. And it's kind of an important thing to note for people who have made mistakes. I mean, they don't have to define you forever. You can learn from them and adapt and change. And I think I don't like when people kind of use something that somebody screwed up, in their past life and use that to define them now, because people change and that's an important thing to remember, looking at different things.
Well, everybody goes through things in their life, and I don't look at it as having good experiences and bad experiences. They're just all experiences that shape us, and um, as long as you're still alive, you've got choices to make. You can dwell on your past, you can worry about the future, or you can be present and just enjoy what you're doing and be happy and try to be a positive influence in the world. So I
Yeah.
find lots of people, the they spend a lot of time worrying about what happened or what they did or what should have been done, or they're concerned about what might happen when all of that's irrelevant. Everything you've done in your past, it doesn't matter if you are doing it today, if you're learning from it, if you made bad decisions in the past, if you're building on things, doing something good today, none of that matters, right? So I think it's important, at least for me, it's important to be present, um, as often as I can. I mean, everyone likes to think, and you take time to, whether you're meditating or you're focusing on something, but the less time I spend, up in my head and more grounded in reality and what's happening around me, the better it is.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We'll have two things here we kind of wrap up on. And one of them is the fact that you played a long NHL career and you were just in the FPHL and now you're in the coast. I mean, is that just for the love of the game? You just love hockey so much you want to keep playing, or what's the reason to keep going?
Yeah, and in part, I mean, ever since, like, I always wanted to get a chance to get back in the NHL, because I think I was only 30 when my career kind of got cut short, and I still had my game, I still had my health, and so I had been wanting to get back uh, ever since then. Then a couple of things happened along the way that set me back, but I still had the drive. When I'd watch games, I'd see guys out there that I'd play every shift against. Um, they're still out there playing, and I'm like, man, if they're out there, I know I could be out there. And in March of 2020, that's when the government shut everything down, and I was coaching and doing hockey schools and such. And then they shut all that down. So I started working in different trades, and it was October that year when a phone call came in from an old friend who asked if I wanted to play hockey again, and it was down in Columbus in the Fed, and that I was so excited because I was definitely better than roofing or doing insulation or carpentry and stuff. So I went back, and I hadn't played in, I think, 7 years at the time, so I didn't know, if I could play. I didn't even know what the Fed was at the time. And so I got down there, realized I could still play, and so figured, well, I'll do this as long as I can, and see the highest level that I can get to. Fortunately, at my age now, a lot of the guys I played with are coaches and managers and stuff too. So I'm gonna send them all some messages and see if they can give me a shot at camp.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of guys who've played a lot older than you are right now. So I mean, the potential is there. Like you said, you have your health, all this stuff. Put the pieces together, and it's totally doable. If you look at a lot of great hockey players who played into their 40s and had a lot of success while doing it. So
Hmm.
you gotta give it a shot while you still can, because
Yeah,
if you
well,
don't, you'd regret it.
if it's not, yeah, if it doesn't happen this year, it's unlikely to happen. But even playing in the coast, like I know I could play in the A for sure. After like, so I didn't know what level or like what the hockey was like in the coast. I know it was obviously way better than the Fed. It's a lot faster and guys are a lot more skilled. And so I didn't know how I'd fit in there. But after playing half the season with them, I know I can keep up with all these guys. So hopefully, one of my old friends was willing to throw me a bone and see if I can hack it with the big boys still.
Yeah, well, it's exciting, and wish you the best with all of that. I figured we could kind of end the episode maybe on just a some sort of a memorable story from your career. Just overall, if there's kind of one story that sticks out in your memory.
Yeah, well, I guess I'd have to say it was so when I was playing the second round in San Jose, we were uh, playing against Detroit, and we ended up. Well, I'll do two parts to the story.
Okay.
So this is when I scored my first playoff goal. It was the first goal of the game, and it was at home, and the place just went nuts. It was so we're on a power play. Danny Heatley got it on the wing, and he drove down to the net and stopped, and then kicked it up to me at the point. And I walked in and took a clapper and sniped, and the place just went nuts. It's just such a surreal feeling scoring a playoff goal. Place was electric, and then so that season, so I'd been traded twice. Um, my ex was pregnant with my second child throughout it all. So she was it was game seven. So we were up 3-0 against against Detroit, and San Jose has got a reputation for blowing it in playoffs pretty bad. So we were up 3-0. We were super excited. We're like, man, we're gonna march all the way to the finals. And sure enough, Detroit comes back, wins the next three games. So now we're going into game seven, and we're looking at what would be the biggest collapse of like their history. So there's so much pressure on us, and this is what they've done like every year was blow it, and now we're gonna blow it super big. But game seven was at home, and my ex was in labor, but made it to the game, and we played. We ended up winning. Uh, Winning, I think it was 2-1. So we made it through. It was such an electric atmosphere winning game seven. It was such a big game. So the rink was nuts. The place was electric. Everyone was so excited. And then right after the game, my daughter was born. So it was a pretty neat experience.
Yeah, that's a crazy couple of moments back to back to back, and all exciting moments too.
Hmm.
To have that game and then to have your daughter born. I mean, that had to have been pretty, just like wow,
Yeah,
all going on at once.
yeah.
But I think that's a good story to end on. So thank you very much for taking some time out of your night and coming on the podcast, sharing some stories about your career. It was great to have you on.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it.